As we've come to the end of the November-December version and session of Build and Lead Resilient Teams, let's take a quick recap over where we've been. What we've looked at in terms of going through the themes of looking at teams and coaching and change and looking at clear goals and roles and culture within the organization. Ways that we've done that have been talking about psychological safety as such a strand that is woven throughout the fabric of building and leading resilient teams. It's what people are looking for. They've always been looking for it, and they're looking for it even more now. People are looking to the human factors in their organization. And people don't leave organizations, they leave leaders and they leave managers, because it's you as a leader or a manager who is a representative of the company. So people are looking for an organization which allows for idea sharing and risk taking, where they feel that their innovation and their creativity will be recognized and encouraged. That risk taking, so long as it's considered risk taking, is a good thing within the organization. Failing multiple times at the same thing is not such a good thing. But you want organizations that provide an environment of safety and psychological safety and trust that, there you go, getting tongue-tied. Then we looked at what it takes to foster teamwork within an organization. What is it that fosters that sense of trust, where you as a leader are learning to practice active listening, open communication, you're dealing with your people with respect and empathy in a non-directive way, that you are far more consultative without giving up your authority, that you treat interactions with individuals with confidentiality, that people feel that they can come to you, that they will be engaged by you and with you, and that they will receive honest and constructive feedback. They will receive positive reinforcement where it is due, and you will be creating an environment where conflict is not avoided, but it is managed, and there is resolution around conflict, as you want different ideas to bounce around within your team. Then we had a look at managing and leading through change, and we talked about this ADKAR model as a very simple model that accommodates so many of the larger scale models that you get from the academics and from what's out there, people like John Cotter. But this is where we talked about the fact that in change, you need to create awareness of the need for change. And through your actions, behaviors, you are creating a desire for that change and to be part of that change. You're making sure that people have the knowledge which enables them to cope with the change, and that they have the abilities to cope, that you've given them the knowledge and the education and the enablement to be able to change their role or upskill in whatever means or method is needed in order to then go through the change, and that you are reinforcing the message, reinforcing the change. Then we talked about coaching, and we referenced particularly the GROW model of Sir John Whitmore. The GROW model is just a simple framework which helps us remember that in any situation, whether it be in the moment, dealing with helping somebody solve a problem, think it through, or it's a longer term coaching relationship, that you are saying, what is the goal of, what is your goal in coming to me with questions? Why are you asking me? What are you asking me? What's the reality of the context in which you're asking, and the reality of whether I can help you any more than you would be able to solve this, or whether we should decide to go elsewhere within the organization, or to help you find what's necessary to actually achieve the immediate goals while we set longer term goals. And while we then are looking at the goal, we're looking at the reality and what we can do. We start to look at the options of what we can do. And that means we bounce those around, we test them with ourselves, we test them with others. And when we reach a decision on the best course of action, we then create the plan. While we're wrapping up, we're creating what will we do, when will we do it, how will we do it. And there we get into the SMART definition of your goals. They are specific, they are measurable, they are aligned with your goal, they are aligned with the organizational goal. They are realistic, they have stretch, but they are realistic based on the skills and experience that you have and that we will give you. And then they are time boxed as well. Then at the end, we talked about a culture of learning. And a culture of learning goes very much to what is an area or an organization and culture of psychological safety. Why? Because we learn to have an open mindset. We learn to trust in the people around us as we learn. You can only learn so much in a taught space, in an actual classroom or an on-demand learning environment, even in a cohort. But it's when you put that knowledge into action in various ways that you are learning. And if you're putting it into action while you are still learning it, there's chances you will make mistakes. And you need to know that in your culture of learning, in your psychologically safe space, it's okay to make mistakes. On the organization's part, there is that contract to provide you with the learning opportunities, to give you that feedback that you need on your performance and how you are actually progressing. Are you developing? Are you improving through their investment in your learning? Then we spoke about the balancing act of life. When looking at what is it to be a resilient individual, but also your resilient teams. And talking about the balancing act of life, because whether it's balancing on this kind of seesaw or it's balancing a wheel, it's an ongoing action. It's not you are balanced and that's it. It is this constant motion of continually seeking to balance your wheel of life, which we'll talk about. And in that, it's managing those aspects of your life which add the richness and the depth to it. But by doing that, take care of your health through your exercise and diet, by managing your workload and having healthy relationships, being with family and with friends and significant others, as well as developing a sense of purpose, of making sure you've got time for relaxation and holidays, for examples. So how do we assess this? So I spoke about the wheel of life. I spoke about having a wheel, a round circle in this instance, which has elements or spokes to the wheel, which represent broadly the main aspects of our lives. And you can choose what these spokes or elements really are for your self-evaluation. But I've provided you with a spreadsheet which enables you to go in and to mark your desired level of satisfaction in that element of life and your actual level of satisfaction in that element of life. It's totally subjective. And I say there could be a level of satisfaction that is desired because although you kind of think you know what 10 looks like and feels like, you don't feel the need to be the 10. If being an 8 is satisfactory to you, now the 8 might be satisfactory to you because you are still working on moving a 5 to a 6 or a 7 on another element. And so that 8 is, it's just fine because I need to put my energy into the 5 to a 6 to a 7. And the reason for that is you only have so many calories in a day. And if you try to overstretch or improve everything by one step, it's probably going to put things out of balance. Where they were in balance, something's going to suffer. So if you look at these elements of a wheel and you use the spreadsheet and you score them, it's not scientific, but it helps you to think things through. You see a label that you don't like on that, well, change the label. That's fine. What I then have done is supplied you with a Excel workbook which contains various dimensions of a person's life, and then a separate workbook which looks at different dimensions or spokes or elements of a wheel that reflect a team or a professional or a project manager. And again, they are generally drawn from experience, and it would be up to you to decide whether those spokes are relevant. But we spoke about how you can be assessing yourself, and by assessing yourself, it helps you to understand other people a little bit more, to understand members of your team. And then there's that flip side to it, which is looking at your team dynamic. And that could be you just doing it as an exercise to get a feeling for what your team is like, or it could be the team participating in the same kind of exercise. And it wouldn't take too much to build out that Excel spreadsheet to cater for 12 people, putting in the scores and getting an average, which could be a very interesting story to see. So that's what we did when we looked at the wheel. Looking at the different elements of our life and where we're satisfied, not satisfied, I introduced the concept of strengths. And strengths being what Marcus Buckingham, Donald O. Clifton, Martin Seligman, Chris Peterson, strengths being those things which make you feel strong. Those times, those activities, those places, whatever it might be, the roles you're playing that are energizing for you. Things you can get lost in the flow of time on. And so one easy exercise for you to do and to get your team to do is take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle of it, and on the left it's what made me feel powerful, on the right it's what drained me, what's my kryptonite, and what's my superpower. And over the course of a week, on a daily basis, at the end of the day, write down on each side of the piece of paper what made you feel strong and powerful and what activities drained you. And maybe you do that for a few weeks, and then you look at that and you can see how much of your day is spent doing what makes you feel strong and what those activities are, and how much of your time is spent on things that drain you. Now, that can be very useful in your own choice of what you do for a job and a career. It can also be very useful in looking at your team and your team doing it, and that you're able to go, well, Bob is powerful at that and drained by that, but Mary's the exact opposite of that. So why aren't we making the best of both of them to give each more of what makes them strong and take away a little bit of that which makes each of them feel weak? When I talked about strengths, and I was talking about workplace strengths, there's another set of strengths which were developed by Martin Seligman and Chris Peterson. And it was called character strengths. And character, in their definition, is your values in action. Now, what we've seen when we talk about balance is numerous statistics which show us that when people have a sense of purpose and meaning in their lives, they are so much less vulnerable to illness and early mortality because they are that much stronger compared to the national statistics for their cultures. So when we're using our values in action, our character being used in our job more from day to day, we are creating or living in a sense of purpose and meaning. When your values are in action in your job, you get a sense of meaning and purpose and implicit reward. So that kind of wraps up these 6 sessions that we've had looking at various themes of leadership and themes of leading and building resilient teams. So thanks very much again for having joined Stuart Rogers and Jeremy Farrell on this journey with the Growth Lab.